Hi, it's Brian again. Just back having a closer look at some of the stuff that's here inside the vault of the, as I call the vault, the electrical room. Used to be called the, I guess, the engine compartment at one point. No more engines, just motors. So we get the electric motors and stuff. We'll go through some more detail of that as we go through. So starting off on the port side, we've got one of the batteries, all 48 volt. They're 15 kilowatt hours each. So that's the first one on the port side. Up there on an angle is the second one, again 15 kilowatt hours. So these electric motors, there's two parts to them. They're AC direct drive right off into the shaft. So the 48 volts DC goes into the controller, which is 48 volts. Gives you out your AC to control your motors. So there's two of them at 15 kilowatts each. So that's 30 kilowatts of power. Yeah, that's a lot of amperage. And so those are connected, one for each motor from each battery, and then they're all parallel together. So I've got my common bus down here for the neutrals, or sorry, grounds. And on this side, I've got all the positive side. And they get connected through. So all the cable is 4-aught cable, because I'm going to be pulling up to about 500 amps per set of these. So 250 amps, 300 amps, give or take, off of each battery on peak, which of course would run out in about an hour and a half. So that doesn't run very long. On top of this here on the port side and on the starboard, I'm going to put another battery right on top of this one, laying down flat across. So that'll then give me 4 batteries at 15 kilowatt hours apiece. So that'll give me 90 kilowatt hours of power. I need a little bit more range, I found this past year. So these motors, as you'll see by all these blue hoses here, they are actually liquid cooled. So coming through the jacket of the motor and through the controller here, they've got glycol that gets run through the system. So those little pumps there on the bottom half there, those are little 12 volt pumps that circulate the glycol through the heat exchanger, which is right above it. And from the heat exchanger, I've got seawater, or lake water up here, going through it from the seacock. So that then cools that off so that it cools the glycol. When running along on, 4 knots, give or take, it really doesn't need the cooling system. That's really only there when you go a little bit more. Up above, you'll see the reservoirs for the cooling. So one set of cooling for the port, one for the starboard for each side. I've got my sea strainers up on the top. I've added in. And you'll note that one of the cooling systems has the motor on the bottom. The other side has the motor on the top. I've got to invert that one yet. They're supposed to be the other way around. This one works quite well as it is, but I've got to change that. You'll see that I've got these batteries strapped down well. There's some cushioning inside here a little bit if there's any vibration, which at 4 knots you really don't get anyway. Down the bottom, just the bilge pumps. So each of these batteries is giving me my 48 volts in parallel with the second one over there on the starboard, you'll see. And then I've just, as I've mentioned earlier, I've got them connected together. These are all the control cables that go up to the helm stations. So there's one for the main helm, as I showed on an earlier video. Up on the fly bridge is another set, a mirror image of them. And they're coupled directly to the shafts, which go out. So I got port starboard shaft, of course. Had to get different sizes for those, but they work quite well. Each one of the batteries has a main shutoff switch, which then goes to a relay, which goes to the motor. And you'll see the other side over here is the other set of them for the shutoff switch and fuses for each one. Right now I've got the batteries on charge. Just want to get them up a little bit higher for when it gets really cold. It's a bit above zero, so the lithium batteries can take a little bit of a charge just to get them up to the high end of it a bit. Over here I've got my Victron Quattro. So that's taking my 120 volts from shore power, 30 amps, which then the second cable you'll see there goes back out to the main panel that I showed in another video. And then coming out of that, I've got those 2 white wires there are my charging, which goes into my common bus that I'm just sitting on here. So that's my common bus. So the port motors and the starboard motors all come through into my common positive, negative, and ground. And I've got my AC system gets grounded to that as well. So I've got one common grounding for everything. So this thing will give me 48 volts out. So that 48 volts then comes in through these two wires that I showed you, and those ones will charge the batteries. When they're down to 5 or 10%, it takes about 14 hours to get these things back up to full charge again. A little bit longer when I add the other two batteries when the time comes, but that's going to be for early in the spring when that comes. I've got the batteries ordered already. Beside that, you'll see the autopilot was the old Raymarine system that was in the boat. I've kept that. It works quite well, so it's not a big deal that way. Down below is the shower pump. It was the old one that was here before, so that works quite well. And as I've mentioned before, I have no black water, so everything is gray water only with the compost toilets. You'll also see again, as I mentioned earlier, about the batteries. They're all supported on a little bit of foam, a little bit of shock absorbing, and they're strapped down all the way around those, which are lagged right into the structure of the boat, so it's not going to move anywhere. So the main controls for these things, as I said, are up on two of them, the main bridge and to the fly bridge. So the batteries are all numbered. So we've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, and you'll see the serial numbers here, which correspond to stickers that I've got up onto the main helm. And each one of the batteries I can monitor via Bluetooth to see exactly how much it's using and what the individual cells are, because there's 16 cells in there, of course, and they're all connected in series to give me my 48 volts. And you can see this one here now is at 53.5 volts. 53.4, and this number 2 is 53.5, and I've got 53.5 over the other side. I've also added some new lighting down here. You can see it's nice and bright, which I've got to a switch right there so I can see down here when I need to. My main water system is down in the bottom, so the 12 volt domestic water through a filter, which is kind of handy. You got big tanks in this thing, so it works well. Down the bottom, I've got my double bilge pumps. Always nice to have two. Very handy. And you can see I still got the exhaust fans down here that used to be when you needed them for the diesel. I don't need them now anymore, but I'm going to use that ventilation system in order to power vent the compost toilet. It needs just a little bit of fan control for it, just to keep things at the right moisture level, and that's as far as I'm going to go on that comment. So yeah, so that works out quite well. That Quattro is very handy. I've got it connected through a display up on the fly bridge so I can watch exactly what it's doing. It works extremely well for whether I plug in a shore power or not. Automatically kicks over all on its own, which is kind of handy. So that is most of the Volt electrical room stuff. If you have any detailed questions about that, just send me a note. You'll either comment onto the YouTube or just send me an email to brianselectrictrawler@gmail.com, and I can give you any more information that you may be looking for. It is a work in progress. There's a few things left to do. The list is quite long. I think I'm at 30 now. I got rid of one of them today, so that helped. That little light I put up in the where the laundry is going to go, and I fixed up the aft thruster battery wiring as well, because it had a little problem with one of the fuse connectors, so I've got a better one in there now, so that'll work quite well. I need to vent those batteries, as I mentioned, so that's kind of important to get that done. But we'll keep working at it over the winter time. The diesel heater gives me a little bit of warmth to get it just a little bit above zero, which is a little handy when it's this cold. Slept here last night. It was quite comfortable, so we'll keep going on that over the winter and work on the hardtop and the solar and things like that. So let me know if you have any questions, and if any of you are going to the winter rendezvous in January in Punta Gorda with the American Great Loop Association, I will be there as well, and hopefully take this boat on the Great Loop next year, but you never know. Things can change as we go, and we'll see what happens over this winter. Take care, stay warm.